Okay, welcome to part 2 of this episode of For the Record. Today we are doing something a little bit different, and we are joined by 3 of our account managers and business developers. And our whole focus today, we had this really great chat with Marty a couple weeks ago that we've all watched and listened to. And the cool part about what they're doing right now is they're bringing smart eyewear to, I believe, a different level to the optometrists and the opticians than it's been done before. I think one of the biggest things that we jumped into on our chat was the fact that we've been so focused on the features for so long. We forget to focus on the outcomes. We forget to focus on the feelings. And that was the quote that I used, the Robert Herjavec quote: the good salespeople sell features, great salespeople sell outcomes, amazing salespeople, they sell feelings. And so we all work with account managers in different perspectives. Cole on the business development side, Alyvia and Erica more on the account management side, and working with those practices once they come in. So the whole point of today is I want to dive into the how. We talked about the what with Marty, we talked about the why. Now let's talk about the how. So from a marketing perspective, we all know that we need to implement a full funnel marketing approach. But for someone who hasn't done marketing in their practice before, can someone jump in and kind of explain what that means? Maybe Cole, can you kind of explain what the marketing funnel is and why that's so important?
So the marketing funnel is sort of a classic way of thinking about your marketing strategy and placing tactics within that marketing strategy. So at Marketing for ECPs, we use the AIDA funnel, which is awareness, interest, decision, and action. It's just a way of categorizing people's awareness or decision-making process when they're interacting with a certain practice or a certain product within a practice or anything like that. So awareness being when people are unaware of if they have an issue, if that is, ocular health related or something that an optometrist can even solve. So they're kind of just exploring at that point. And then interest and decision is kind of that research phase where people are trying to learn a little bit more about their problem. They're comparing providers. They're seeing what solutions are available to them.
That's more the middle of the funnel.
Yeah, the middle of the funnel. And then that kind of bottom of the funnel is where people are actually taking an action or making a final decision on, okay, I'm going to book this appointment. I'm going to buy this product. We know that certain segments of your audience, like a percentage of a segment of an audience, is going to fall in different parts of the funnel. And there's a reason why it's funnel shaped, is that it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So 60% of your audience is going to be in that awareness phase, or your total addressable market. So you have to spend a lot of time and effort actually putting yourself out there, whereas only 4 or 5% of your audience is actually in that awareness phase. So you can't really always be relying on marketing tactics that are just for action, because you have to build a lot more awareness. You actually have to build your funnel to get people to that phase.
So Erica, let's talk about that then, because with the smart glasses at this point, I think something that isn't necessarily considered as much when they're brought into a practice is the fact that we can't just jump right to the selling, because the patients likely don't know about the frames as much. They might have seen them on social media, they might have seen a celebrity wearing them, but as for full integration into society right now, they're kind of just starting. It's really just starting to pick up that momentum. So why would it be important from that side of the spectrum to start with awareness for seeing the implementation of these smart glasses into the average practice?
So when we think about these smart glasses, I think the biggest gap is that people don't know the benefits and all of the capabilities that these glasses can provide. And if we think of, you have to kind of take it back. Who is the target audience, and how do we want to reach them, and what sort of messaging do we want to have, and how can we do that? So I was thinking about different types of audiences that wouldn't even know that these smart glasses are applicable to them. And if they knew about them, how excited they would be. And I was thinking, in my case, I'm a mom who doesn't have their hands free, is constantly multitasking, has things on the go at all times, grocery list, your kid is running around, you want to capture things. Let's make sure that these different audiences know about what the benefits of these smart glasses are, and you do that through awareness and interest. And that's the top of the funnel approach. So if we can talk to these audiences through different channels that are in that awareness phase, so we're talking about Google Display, we're talking about Meta ads, we're talking about YouTube, we're talking about geo-targeting, all of those different areas are amazing channels to spread that message to people who had no idea that these smart glasses could benefit them in ways that improve their lives. And so I think, when we look at audience segmentation and how you want to reach them, we need to make sure that those messages are reaching them in those channels, because at that very top of the funnel, that's how eventually you segment people down.
So let's break down those ads a little bit more, because you mentioned Google Display ads or Meta ads. Mm-hmm. What are those? Mm-hmm. And why do we use them at the top of the funnel versus the bottom of the funnel, as Cole talked about, in that kind of the lead generation piece? Why are we using those to talk to a larger group of people for the awareness? What specifically about those, what's the reason behind that?
Google Display ads operate on the Google Display Network. That's, 90% of people in the world are using Google. So, you have millions of websites and that are interacting with the Google Display Network. So your ad is showing up in all of the places that those people are searching. And so that gives you the ability to reach people in that, they're not necessarily searching for those particular keywords. They're not searching for smart frames, but because they are a target audience, they're going to see those ads across all those platforms. And that can be, the Weather Network, or for example, people.com. Versus when you look at Meta ads, Meta specifically pertains to Facebook and Instagram platforms, and Facebook versus Instagram have different audiences that are larger segments of the audiences that are using these different platforms, but the users need to be in those platforms to see those ads. So it depends on, who is your target audience, and where are they more likely to be when you're choosing a platform to interact with your ads.
Okay, so Alyvia, she brought up something interesting, especially based off of the chat that I had with Marty, and that was the outcomes versus the features. And immediately when Erica was talking about the awareness side, she instantly thought to, well, I'm a mom. I need my hands free. I need to be able to do things while doing other things. So when we talk about the story of an outcome and that message to communicate there, how could we utilize that kind of outcome and that story that we want to get across through those awareness ads, or that kind of that top and middle of the funnel? Where does your mind go to? I know you're creating strategies all the time. So creatively, where can we take this for smart glasses?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think I work with a lot of practices that focus a lot on myopia management and dry eye. And when we're doing these kinds of awareness ads for those specialty services, we're really focused on the symptoms. So I think we need to take that same approach into smart frames. And by doing so, instead of more of a symptomatic approach, a benefit approach. So I love what Erica said, being a mom, never having her hands free. And also something I really liked that Marty said was, I believe when he was on vacation with his wife, he ordered something off of the menu and his wife actually got sick. And because he wasn't able to have a tool to translate that, that would have never happened and they would have been able to fully enjoy their vacation. So I think going into more of an approach with wording and, design assets that reflect benefits and create that story that really evoke that feeling and emotion behind why this product is so valuable.
Yeah, that story behind it is the way that most opticians would be selling different frame brands anyways. Mm-hmm. It's funny because you look at either David Beckham's line or Gwen Stefani's line. A lot of practices will have those. Well, I've never heard an optician actually walk out and start to explain the specs as to why they're made the way they are. They're made because they're popular because there's a perception around them as to who is tied to the brand. What is the story? What is the feel? And with smart glasses, we take this approach that we have to talk about these unique features. Great, the features are something, but how are we actually driving more to that feeling? Cole, I'm assuming that when you're meeting with practices who haven't worked with us yet, they probably bring a lot of, we have this amazing wall of frames. We have a ton of different techniques and tools and technology, all of that. Great. Do patients actually care about what technology and how much the frames cost, or do they care about what the outcome of the technology is going to be for them and what the outcome of wearing these is going to bring to their life? Like, where do you see that from people who haven't really thought about the marketing funnel at all?
Yeah.
And how could we fit smart glasses into that side of the story for them?
Most of the time when I'm meeting with practices, I've got certain questions that I just want to learn about them to understand the lay of the land. And often I'll ask, hey, not what brands do you carry, but why do people come to you specifically? So we are working with independent optometrists, and oftentimes they'll have, a Walmart or a Costco or, somewhere in their vicinity that is kind of offering frames at a lower price, kind of like more discounts, things like that. And, they are usually struggling with that. But the practices that are doing exceptional in that area are the ones that really lean on the experience. So and they actually talk about, okay, it's not just coming in and you get your eye exam and then we're going to show you our frame wall and we're going to hope that you buy something. It's, hey, we have board certified, trained opticians who, understand about, style, about your everyday use with your frames, and they're going to curate a selection for you. And we're actually going to help, this be integrated into your life. So those are the practices that I find do the best in terms of, even when they're looking at their numbers, their capture rate, their average frame sale, their average lens sale, because it's so much less about selling. It's about educating patients on the impact that this is going to have on their life.
Yeah, I think this is where it pulls back to the principles of influence that we all know very well and have read the book on. And the principle of liking. People buy from someone that they actually like. There is a huge impact that makes on a business when, especially in this awareness phase, that we're just talking about, if you're talking about your brand or why you carry certain things, telling that story makes people want to come to you. And that's the whole point of the top of the funnel, right? Like, we're not trying to get people to make a decision in that moment. Practices are not trying to put something on a Google display ad and instantly get someone in the door. It's about, how can I get my perception out there to as broadly as I can in an area, but specifically on the exact audience I want to get to. It's essentially digital billboards, but that's the top of the funnel. So now that we get into the interest stage and we're focused on social media, posting strategically there, and email marketing, why is that important to lead patients who are interested in smart glasses to that next stage? Get them past, cool, now I know about it, now I know some of these outcomes, but actually making someone go, I might go and talk to my optometrist about this, or I need to look further into this. So why is that stage of the funnel and those tools so important for something like smart glasses?
For sure. So once somebody knows about it and now they're hooked, tell me more. How can I use these? When you're talking about social media and using that strategically, you want to see those glasses in action. I love the example of looking into a fridge with your Meta glasses and seeing what sort of recipes you can make from everything that's in your fridge. Amazing. At that point, you're like, okay, I think I need, I think I need these because that's going to make my life a lot easier. Or things like, if someone has a hearing issue, putting on the smart frames and realizing, oh, these can amplify my hearing. That's another way.
Like conversation assistant.
Yeah. So many people have hearing issues and they feel, as mentioned, that there's a stigma around wearing hearing aids. So to show that you can wear these smart frames in a stealth way, that's another great way on social media to show these are glasses in action, and to build that interest for the person who maybe was a bit on the fence or had just heard about it, but to say, oh, this applies to me and this is going to benefit my life. And then when we apply that to email marketing, those are your patients who already trust you, who you already have a relationship with. They are open and ready to listen to what you have to say. And then when you are sending content that arrives in their inbox that they're checking, every single day, and they're learning how these products can benefit them. When they visit your practice, they're going to be like, oh, I saw in your email newsletter those smart frames. Now can I try them on in the practice? You've already hooked them. This is a really great way to hook them, whether they are a loyal patient or they've been following you on social media or that content was targeted to them.
I think what you've just given as the example of the type of content that you can put into the social media posts or the email, like actually utilizing them, seeing that listening assisted device and those kind of tools, that wouldn't make sense out of order in the funnel. Because if you started with the awareness piece on that, or you use that as your awareness ad, do people even know what these smart frames are? Do they know who carries them? Do they know that you carry them and it's a part of your brand? And so now all of a sudden you start talking about these awesome features and you're at a point where, okay, that's great, but I need to actually look up what these things are first. And suddenly you're setting them back in the funnel. So that's why it's so strategic for our clients and for practices to actually look at, let's make them aware first, and then we kind of hook them with that really engaging content like email and social media. Alyvia, you have a lot of experience in social media. That's something that you've done in past careers. That's something that you do on your own time. I'm curious from your perspective how you can take this from your kind of just average posting, like this isn't just a picture of them sitting on their display. And Erica kind of jumped into it that you can show some actual examples of it. But from a feeling and a storytelling perspective, how would you use organic social media, or maybe even putting some boost budget behind it? How would you use that still in the interest phase? You don't want people to buy it yet, but what are some of the things we can do to lead people into oh, that's why it would be great for me?
Yeah, I think just adding on to what Eric has said, really just going in with that human approach and showing how they can benefit you in everyday life. So looking at your fridge, asking it to create a menu for you. If you're traveling this summer, making sure you have those so you can have translation available anywhere. I think showing and showcasing that through social media can be extremely valuable, but not only just on a regular static feed post or even a carousel post. I think you can really expand outside of that by adding these and sharing them onto your story, creating a lot of reel and video content as well, even bringing the doctor into the practice and them sharing why they would purchase these glasses or wear them. I think the other really unique feature about them is that they are very stylish and they can work well with many different face shapes and be shown on a lot of different people. So I think showcasing those frames on your staff as well, alongside all of the capabilities that they have, would go a really long way also.
So you touched on exactly what I hoped you would, which is the fact that the email and the social media posting, it's such a more intimate, personal way for a practice to connect with their audience. It's not just putting out an ad. It's not just putting something on Google or YouTube. This is, hey, these are the people within our four walls. This is how they utilize them. This is how they look in them. This is their favorite part of this. And can you talk a little bit more about the strategy behind utilizing stories, not just, great, here's a picture in my display, it goes in my feed and then I leave it. Why can we can't stop there. Can we talk about why?
Yeah, of course. I think within the last couple of years, I think not only us as an organization, but a lot of our clients have noticed that social media has shifted a lot. So a couple years ago, we were really focused on, engagement and followers. Now we've taken a big shift to where views and reach are a lot more important. And how can we reach more people? How can we do that? So a great way that we talked about earlier are meta ads, or putting a boost budget behind that. But something a little more organically that practices can do on a daily basis is posting on stories. Not only are you going to make sure that you're reaching your whole audience, but you're also generating more impressions. So it's that second impression, not only on your feed, but again, on that story again. So I think the whole point of social media is trying to get in front of as many of your followers and people who aren't following you as possible. And again, just with everything shifting, even, Instagram moving away from hashtags, the best way to generate that reach is posting as much as you can and on as many ways as you can as well.
And so that's the piece of talking to those who follow you on social media and perhaps don't. It's a great way to reach people who haven't seen you before. And that's why I find email it's criminally underutilized emails for practices, because those are literally your followers. Those are all the people who you have done business with in the past couple of years. And they're the ones who already trust you. You're past the awareness stage. You're almost past the interest stage at that point. It's a direct line of communication to them to lead them there. Now, the last part of the marketing funnel is action, decision and action. Cole, can you quickly summarize SEO and PPC? Two of the hardest things to probably summarize, but the why these are the bottom of the funnel, why these are the ones that take people who have gone through awareness, through interest, and then now they're into the decision and action piece.
So thanks for making me explain the two hardest ones. I appreciate that. They're, I guess, sometimes unwieldy concepts, but you can really kind of break them down into a few key principles. So search engine optimization is the act of optimizing your online presence. Most of the time it's your website to start with, to show up higher on, well, Google. I'm not going to say, if you use Bing, that's okay. But, I think Google's market share is like 98% or something like that. Search engine optimization, there are kind of two sides to search engine optimization. There is the technical side of how your website is built, your XML sitemap, your schema, all of those kinds of, really, really into the weeds technical parts of it. But then there's also the, content management, like the on-page search engine optimization, which really, comes down to, a lot of the times it's your service pages on your website, it's your homepage, it's what story you're telling, but it's also, content that you're putting out like blogs. So, those are really good when, I think that what you were talking about earlier with, we're not really looking at engagement, we're not really looking at follower count. We get so much amazing data from all these platforms that we use. It's about listening to what your audience, like what your community wants. So, you can go in and you can do keyword research on, all right, I brought in smart frames. What questions do people have about those in my area? Can I answer those questions? Well, I'm the expert. I'm an optometrist. I'm an authority on this subject. I'm going to put out a blog about the answer to this question. So somebody might be saying, what are the benefits of smart glasses, or how can I use smart glasses in my everyday life? Then you can write a really good article about that, put that on your website.
And suddenly to Google and your patients, you're the one answering it.
Exactly. Yeah. And you have the authority. Now, oftentimes when I'm speaking with practices and, they've never done search engine optimization before, or they've had, templated blogs and things like that. So search engine optimization doesn't really work. The thing that I'll always emphasize is, one, we have to make sure that we're actually listening to your audience and we're, custom writing everything and that it's all being edited and vetted. But then also oftentimes I'll pair that with PPC, Google search advertising, search engine marketing. There's so many words for it, Google AdWords, because they pair really, really well together because they're both keyword based. So, keyword, just a search term that somebody's putting into the Google search bar, and where search engine optimization, really long-term benefit. We have clients who, I've seen blogs from 2016 that still get, a ton of traffic to their website. So it's something that compounds over time. The search engine marketing is really, you're putting budget behind bidding on the keywords that people are searching for. So that's where it's a really good lead generation approach, because you can see, what are people searching for? Where can I actually allocate some of my budget toward as well? And you can pay to show up right at the top of Google.
It's renting versus owning.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. So, the way that I sometimes put it is, search engine marketing is you're paying your rent. SEO, you're paying your mortgage.
I want to do a roundup of everything that we talked about here, because we talked about the full funnel. We talked about the tactics in awareness to interest to action, but let's actually talk about how we would use them. So I'm going to give you an example of ABC Optometry. They've been in their location for the last 15 years. They have a couple of doctors. They have a great optical staff, and they're actually known in the community for their really good optical selection. They just bought in MetaFrames. They have no idea where to start. So let's start with awareness. Who wants to take this? How would we start advertising this? Pitch me the campaign.
I think starting with awareness, the best thing to do would, again, taking a look at the audience and running awareness ads. And when I say take a look at the audience, that really depends on where your ideal patient base is who would be looking for frames like this.
Let's say that the audience is women 35 to 45. They are young moms, a very sporty community. So let's say that's the audience.
Okay.
Now we have that.
I would definitely go with a meta approach. I think that Facebook and Instagram are great tools to utilize reach when reaching out to an audience like that. That's where, younger moms, parents are going to be spending a lot more time browsing through social media. So that's how I would start a campaign. And again, going after more of a benefit approach and, using real life examples, showing people actually using these frames and how it's making their life easier, essentially.
So being able to capture the actual photos of what they're seeing of their kids playing on the soccer field or on the baseball diamond. Great. So we got that as the awareness piece. So we've now communicated from the stance of this is your story. We know who you are. This is how we know you would use it. There would be a big benefit to it. Now we get to the middle of the funnel. Now we're into interest and action. So this is where we start to engage more strategic social media and emails. What's our next stage from taking that specific message to that audience? What's our next stage that we use with email or social?
I think if I can add on to advertising on Meta with the digital awareness ads, I think it's also a really good aspect to go in organically. So I'm a really big believer on cohesive marketing. So making sure that our paid Meta ads look the same as our social media posts so that when we're making impressions in a paid format, people are also very easily able to go to our social media and see those same assets there.
They're seeing part of the full story.
I would say, to add on to that when you hook their interest with, like let's say they're just like scrolling on Instagram, they see an ad, then most of the time the opportunity is that they may click on that ad, get to your website, but oftentimes they're going to click on your social media profile to learn a little bit more. So that's where you can kind of expand on that story. So if you have that kind of omni-channel approach where, you have that ad, maybe if we're working with ABC Optometry and we know that we're targeting like that specific audience, it's like active mothers, things like that, we might shift that strategy to, okay, let's pin some posts at the top of your Instagram profile and say, okay, one of these is going to focus on the active, kind of sport benefit of using the smart frames. And then the next is going to be, hey, this is how much time you get back. You spend, X amount of time on your phone, I guess 7-8 hours a day. Hey, what if we could give you some of that time back where you're still able to be present? Mm-hmm. So things like that where, we can take all of the things that we've learned about the practice, how they view themselves, what their brand is, and then expand it into what's that story that we can tell about you as it relates to this product that you've brought on when it comes to your audience. I think that that's really the power of kind of pairing those and actually being able to monitor what that journey is.
So let's keep going with that story. Erica, now how would we implement that into an email campaign?
Mm-hmm. It comes back to talking about, I'm thinking about even just myself. So I think of things like make grocery shopping easier with smart frames as the opening, as the headliner of the email. Okay, what is this about?
And you're interested.
I'm interested immediately. Yeah. What is this about? I'm going to read the post, and then maybe we would guide it to the social media. You could see these videos. It all engages. I'm interested not only on the email, then I go and see the content on social media. It's really interesting. I can see and imagine myself in that. I'm hooked.
So to use the analogy of you're hosting a party, the creation of the actual invitations and tossing those out the door into the wind, that's awareness. Well, it's going to be much more strategic if you actually put addresses and stamps on there, because then you're sending them to the right people. Mm-hmm. But the final step, getting them to actually RSVP that they're coming to your party, mm-hmm. That's the action stage. That's the decision and action stage. Make them make a decision because you've given them the reason why this works for them. So how do we... What's the final stage here with PPC or with SEO, and why is that so crucial to this process of it being a strong implementation of smart glasses for an optometry practice?
I think that so search engine optimization and PPC, those are the things that you add for when people are doing that final little bit of research, because to kind of use your analogy a little bit, they've gotten the invitation and they've been thinking about it, but gosh, I lost my RSVP. I don't know how am I going to get to Ty's party. I really want to go to Ty's party. Everybody's going to be dressed so cool. So so pay-per-click advertising, as an example, is where you can supplement that forgetfulness of the audience when they might have exited the funnel otherwise. Then they're saying, I know that there was something that I wanted to do or to research a little bit more about. Does anybody sell smart glasses near me? Oh, great. Okay, ABC Optometry does that. So that's where that really comes into play to supplement the rest of the funnel, is that it's that real lead capture. It's the press this button in case of emergency. If somebody has they have 1,000,001 things going on, moms have 1,000,001 things, and I'm thinking about going to do groceries, and that email said to go and do groceries. So I'm gonna go and do that. So that's where that search engine optimization, that really kind of dominating Google and the search engine results page, kind of really comes into play.
It's that realization that something that's important to you in your business is one of the many things on their mind. So thinking that they saw a message one time and they're just simply going to act on it because they've seen the message, versus helping them to make that decision that is going to be right for their care, for their style, for their lifestyle. That's awesome. That's the final stage of actually leading people through to this decision and being best for your practice implementation. So thank you guys all for being a part of this. This was awesome. Cole, Alyvia, Erica, appreciate this very much, and can't wait to see us actually start to implement some of these for our own practices that we work with. Thanks, everybody.